I've been grinding the finals like crazy for a week straight with the new Superlight 2C, and I think it's about time I give you guys a full review. Whilst this definitely is the best mouse that Logitech has ever made, there are definitely some flaws that might be a deal breaker for you. But before we get into any of that, all opinions are my own, as they are as always. And if you're at all interested in these type of reviews, definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right next to it. Getting into the unboxing experience, it's pretty much the same as per usual with Logitech. Obviously you get the mouse itself with the stock skates installed already. You get an extra puck with a skate installed as well. You also get this USB-A to USB-C cable, and then there are also these grips. They're still the same usual grips and they're pretty ass. They might be grippy at first, but I've had people tell me horrible things about these. I honestly really like this unboxing experience, and as a reviewer I can say that this is pretty eco-friendly. Getting into the build quality, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. It is rock fucking solid. It passes the Ninjutsu 10 test, and although there is some movement on the main buttons, this is nothing that annoys me in-game. There is no creaking, there is no switch grinding. There is some wobble if you play towards the back, but the way that I use it, I have nothing to complain about here. And in terms of weight, without the puck, it's around 52 grams. Keep in mind I do have grips installed, so it would be around 51 grams without grips. And if you want to make it any lighter, you could easily take the base apart, cut out a hole here in the back. You could simply use side cutters or a Dremel. You could also swap out the battery since the battery life is really good in this thing. And there's so many ways to make it even lighter if you'd want to. But at a stock weight of around 50 grams, I think that it's great. But I still wouldn't call it super light compared to many other mice on the market. Even at a similar size like the Pulsar X-Lite Crazy Light, for example, and together with their great engineering, that one comes in at around 42 grams. Or the Pulsar X2 Crazy Light, for example, that even with full skates installed comes in at around 38 grams. Compared to that, 50 grams almost looks bad. But yet again, 50 grams is fine. But obviously I would appreciate if it would be even lighter than that. Before we get into the shape, I do want to talk about the coating. As you can see, I've installed grips on this thing, and that is something I normally never do, as you can see in my videos. We are hitting around 10 to 13 degrees Celsius max around here. So for us gamers, that means our hands are getting colder, not as sweaty anymore. And whenever I clean my hands and go to grip this mouse, it feels like a bar of soap. Keep in mind that this is only a real issue if you have very dry hands like me and live in a cold environment. And with the coating that they have, that is definitely slightly improved over the original Superlight, it does feel slightly chalky, slightly grippy, and I had no issues gripping this thing whilst we had over 20 degrees Celsius. So I think that for a lot of people living in humid and warm environments, this would be no issue at all. But for me personally, since we're hitting winter here in Switzerland, I simply cannot get enough grip for me to use it comfortably in game. Now, getting into the shape of this thing. I definitely had to get used to it with my 19 by 10 centimeter claw grip, because this thing is tiny. Having recently reviewed or played mice like the Ninjutsu 10, NP01S Ergo, or the Pulsar Susanto X, this definitely took some adjustment for me personally because it is very short. It is not that the mouse is very narrow, it is just short. As I've already touched upon in my initial impressions video, the way that I have to grip this mouse in order to use it comfortably with my aggressive claw, I have to grip it very far towards the front. And the issue that I have with this mouse is that the curvature towards the front starts very early, and I would still prefer if this mouse were 5mm longer, but I have adjusted. I just had to curl my fingers more on the side for me to be able to use it comfortably, and once I did get used to it, I like this mouse a lot. But yeah, the best way to think of this shape is just take the GPX Superlight 2, scale it down by 13%, and that's it. They haven't really done anything else in that. It is still definitely a potato. It still suits all types of grip styles, and I still think that this is a very safe shape overall. It doesn't feel as bulbous anymore because the overall mouse is so much smaller. So I can pretty much recommend this shape for anyone with 18 by 10 hands or smaller. You can use it with 19 by 10, 1911, or 20 by 10 hands. I just can't comfortably recommend it to you because it is so expensive. It is such a risk to take. But if you don't mind spending all that money and you want to try a downsized GPX, I can definitely recommend it. Me personally, I was a huge fan of Yadias Plus from G-Wolves. It was the mouse that made me actually main wireless mice back then. And in terms of overall size, these are pretty similar. Of course, the 2C has the shape of the actual GPX, and the HDS Plus is definitely a bit different, but I think I actually prefer the hump over on the 2C because it feels much more narrow, very maneuverable, not as supportive, whilst on the HDS Plus you definitely have these contact points that make you locked in. Also, the taper on the front here of the HDS Plus is kind of aggressive, and the 2C is overall very safe. It is rather flat, and it is just overall a very safe shape. It is a very small mouse. In theory, it even has smaller dimensions than the original Viper Mini, although the overall shape is definitely different because it is not as narrow towards the front, but I just want to make sure that you realize how small this mouse actually is. When looking at it side by side to the Viper V3 Pro, this thing looks crazy tiny. Getting into these skates, I have only been using this on cloth mouse pads, although I have a glass pad on my desk right now, and so far, they don't feel like ass in my environment. I have heard people saying that they are slightly slower than 100% PTFE skates and only a slight upgrade over the original skates on the GPX2, but for me personally, these have actually been faster than almost all 100% PTFE skates that I have here. I have compared them to core pads, I have compared them to normal 100% PTFE pad skates with adhesion pads, and these actually feel slightly faster than all of them so far. I will say, however, that the material is very soft, and I do think that it will degrade pretty quickly. I already have some deeper scratches inside of these skates, and I can definitely see them slowing down over a month or two, but I am still very happy to report that I have never touched the base of this mouse on a cloth mouse pad. As you can see, the skate ridges are fully gone. There's no more plastic around the skates that protrudes from the actual base of the mouse. These skates are also decently rounded, and I have no issues on them on cloth. And so far, I don't feel a need to replace them. And that is coming from somebody who has 2 full buckets of aftermarket skates and hates stock skates. In terms of the buttons, keep in mind that these Light Force switches are still very tactile and very heavy compared to almost any other switch on the market currently. I do feel that my left click especially has loosened up a bit over the past week. It doesn't feel as super stiff as it was out of the box. I can actually spam my mouse 1, but it doesn't feel anything close as a spammable mechanical switch. The scroll feels pronounced, although not too heavy. It is definitely spammable, and I think that it is perfect. Even the scroll click is very spammable. It is not too heavy, also not too light, and it is probably my favorite scroll wheel implementation of all time. As I've already said in my initial impressions video, the side buttons no longer push into the shell like crazy, although they still feel like GPX side buttons. They are a bit mushy, a bit light, not really satisfying, but they work and they haven't annoyed me in game. Here's also a full sound test from my initial impressions video. In terms of battery life, I've been running on 2K out of the box, and I've only had to charge it once so far, and it wasn't even really needed. I only hit the threshold of the low power mode at around 20% or something like that because I hadn't changed it yet. So in theory, I could see you being able to run this mouse at 2K for like a week straight, no problem. That also means that if you want to do any weight modding, you could definitely use a smaller battery than this one in order to make the overall feel of the mouse a bit more snappy. In terms of the software, of course you can use the Onboard Memory Manager. I will link it down in the description for you. This is simply a portable executable so that you don't have to install G-Hub. However, G-Hub does have some exclusive options. Before you do anything inside of G-Hub, make sure to put the Onboard Memory Manager mode to on. Then inside of the gaming surface mode, you can set it to off if you want to use a glass pad, on if you are playing on a cloth surface, and if you don't know what to set it to because you have some special type of cloth pad or whatever, simply set it to auto. In order to get the best performance possible, you can use optical only. That is actually for the Light Force switches since they are a hybrid switch in theory. And if you want to save like 1 hour of battery time, you can use the hybrid mode. And that is pretty much it. For all other settings, definitely use the Onboard Memory Manager. It is much more lightweight, much more user-friendly, and yes, you can actually change your lift-off distance now, and it works. And no, you cannot go above 1K Hertz on wired mode, and you can go all the way up to 8K. I personally would just recommend anyone to try out 2K and see if you have any issues. You also have this neat B-Hub feature so that you don't jump on accident when slamming down your mouse on a desk if you have jump bound to scroll wheel. which has definitely been an issue in the pro scene before. Now, getting into the conclusion, who is this mouse for? If money does not matter to you and you've always wanted a downscaled GPX that is a proper GPX mini and not just a slightly smaller version, then I can absolutely recommend this thing to you guys. It is so fucking solid, it is so high quality. I really do like the switches because they're so tactile and you never get any misinputs. And even the stock skates are actually usable for once. This is the first time I can ever say this about a Logitech mouse. They have definitely come a long way from the original Superlight or even the original Pro X Wireless, but I would never spend 180 euros on this thing personally. And that's even coming from somebody living in Switzerland. When looking at the average wage in any European country, I cannot see a single reason to justify spending so much money on this thing. It is actually insane. If you're already tempted and you do want to get this mouse, I can only recommend for you to wait for retailers to put this thing on sale, because I cannot imagine that it is selling too well, although it is Logitech and it's a new mouse. It's just very niche, just like the original Viper Mini, which never got a proper refresh, and that was actually because Razer said that it was not worth it for them to make a mass-produced super light Viper Mini. It is just a very niche market. There are not that many people with baby hands. Obviously, the average hand size is much smaller over in Asia, but then again, Asia has some of the best gaming mice at half the price over there, with so many shapes to choose from. So I simply do not understand why this thing costs so much. If you're from the US or even Europe, I would highly recommend the HitScan Hyperlight. It is a similarly sized mouse, but it has more length, it is more viable, it is more safe, and I have never heard anybody talking bad about this thing. So definitely check out my review down in the description below if you're interested in the 2C or anything similar. And if you really want something that is just as small as this thing, I would probably look at the Cloud XS from YSL, for example. Then there's also the X2 Mini Crazy Light, but that is definitely a rear hump mouse and very much focused on claw grip and also fingertip grip. And then there are also other brands that make super good mouse for around $100, like Raw M, for example. Or dare I even say it, ATK, who make mice for around $40 to $80 that are all super solid from what I can tell so far. But for those looking at it, I can definitely recommend it for like 18 by 10 centimeter hands. Me personally, with my 19 by 10 centimeter aggressive claw grip, I can barely use this. This is at the absolute edge of what I can personally use, but I did actually feel comfortable with it after putting on some grips in order to compensate for the lacking coating, in my personal opinion. I never had any cramping, but I did have to curl my fingers quite a bit more just to be able to use it properly. And once I got adjusted, I was definitely fragging with this thing. I have seen people with even 20 by 10 centimeter hands being able to claw grip this thing comfortably, so maybe it's just a skill issue on my part. But spending this much money on a 2C, you better be sure you can at least use it comfortably. And if you're not sure, just get it on Amazon. For the price of the 2C, you can get both a HitScan Hyperlight with the 8K dongle and an Ninjutsu 10. And I would much rather have these two mice than one Superlight 2C. But that's about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right next to it if you're at all interested in these type of reviews. But that's about it. I'll see you guys pretty soon. Peace out.